Growing up in the 2000s, there was an abundance of things for a kid to get obsessed over. The Star Wars prequels were in full swing, the Transformers were making a comeback with the Unicron trilogy, and Saint Seiya's final arc from the manga was finally getting animated after 13 years. But there was one series I always came back to. That, of course, being the Power Rangers. The monsters, robots, and action really caught my attention as a kid, and shaped my tastes. For better or for worse. I loved this series so much that I made an Iceberg chart for it. There's been some made online in the past, but I felt like they didn't go deep enough like other icebergs for franchises have. And at nearly 200 entries, I think we've got most of our bases covered. If you don't know how these work, basically the top layers are made up of well-known pieces of information that maybe even those with limited knowledge know about, but gets more obscure and darker the lower we go. Just a side note, I won't bring up Sentai too often unless it's directly related, which sounds weird at first, but it'll make sense. Well, without further ado, to celebrate the franchise's 30th anniversary, this is the definitive Power Rangers Iceberg Explained. Layer 1. Mighty Morphin. The series that started it all, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, first aired on August 28, 1993, was a smash hit almost immediately. Mighty Morphin Mania was in full effect, and all kinds of merchandise would fly off the shelves, and I mean all kinds. Mighty Morphin had ingrained itself deep into pop culture and is usually the first thing someone will think of when they think of the Power Rangers. Its effect on pop culture can't be emphasized. With loving tributes and parodies in other shows and movies, the Power Rangers never stopped being part of the public consciousness. G-Ranger. Somewhat common knowledge nowadays, Power Rangers takes its fight and Megazord footage from Super Sentai, and the first series they took that footage from was 1992's Kyoryu Sentai G-Ranger. This came about due to Haim Saban taking a business trip to Japan in 1984, and by chance catching an episode of Chodenshi Bioman in his hotel room. To make things short, basically everything was changed in the show's export to the US. G-Ranger had a fantasy mythology motif for its monsters, whereas in Mighty Morphin, they were just simply aliens. Most famously, they changed the male Tiger Ranger, a boy, into the female Ranger, Trini. There's plenty more differences that you can look up on your own that recontextualize varying aspects of the show. Zords. Zords are mechanical vehicles or animals that are capable of combining or transforming into humanoid robots called Megazords. They usually finish off the monster of a week in every episode. Usually there's multiple formations for Megazords, such as the main and 6th Ranger Zords combining to all the available Zords in the season combining into an Ultra Zord. The story goes that the name comes from the words sword and dinosaur. The Megazord is also one of the flagship items in the toy line, and has been a mainstay in the franchise since the beginning. Gender-swapped Rangers. Starting with Trini and Mighty Morphin, it was fairly common to make the Yellow Ranger female even if in the Sentai footage they were male. This tradition continued until Taylor in Wild Force, but would come back almost 20 years later, with Izzy the Green Dino Fury Ranger being made female from the male Toa in Ryusoulger. This is also why some Yellow Rangers don't have skirts, but the Pink Ranger does. Martial arts and explosions. If you ask someone with cursory knowledge of the series what it's about, most likely the answer they'll give you is that, martial arts and explosions. And technically, it's true. While there is a lot more under the hood, the charm of the stunt crew doing flips and kicks with monsters being blown up is undeniable. Automorphin / flip heads. These can be considered the trademark toys of the franchise since they've been introduced with Mighty Morphin. They're simple figures that have an action feature that lets them change from a civilian head to a helmeted one. They were a constant in the toy line for Mighty Morphin up until Wild Force, and disappeared, but recently sort of made a comeback with the Samurai toy line and the 2017 movie line. Most recently, Hasbro's released a line of retro Morphin figures, give old characters more articulation, and add new characters such as Ranger Slayer and a human-scaled Ninjor. McDonald's promotions. Power Rangers has had plenty of McDonald's promotions over the years, starting with Mighty Morphin in 1994. These Happy Meal toys have varied greatly with stuff like Pogs, figurines, Zords, and a VHS tape? Yeah! During Lightspeed Rescue's run, McDonald's had a Happy Meal promotion that included a buildable Lightspeed Megazord, and also the Power Rangers in 3D tape, which contains the Trakina's Revenge 2-parter. There were also a couple of cancelled concepts for McDonald's promotions that had art made for it from around Mighty Morphin. These would have included color-changing cups, cups with molded helmet tops, painter's caps, and a plastic Happy Meal tray box that could be used as a mask. Knockoff toys. Any big franchise will have its knockoffs, but there are so many Power Ranger ones out there, you've almost likely seen one of these in one way or another. Be it in person at a flea market, dollar store, or those classic pictures that circulate online every now and then with stuff like the Sense of Right Alliance. New Zealand. When Disney took ownership of Power Rangers, they were initially content with just airing reruns of the first 10 seasons, not producing any more due to their cost. That was until it was suggested that production moved to New Zealand to cut these costs. And Power Rangers would film in New Zealand from Ninja Storm up until Cosmic Fury, where it was announced that no further productions would be made in the country. Ironically, the series itself was banned in New Zealand over its violence until 2011, nearly filming for a decade in a country where it was banned. Team-ups. Once an annual institution for the franchise, Power Rangers would often team up with their predecessors for a single episode or the occasional two-parter. This sort of began in Zeo with Rangers of Two Worlds, where the Alien Rangers teamed up with the Zeo Rangers, and with True Blue to the Rescue during In Space, where Justin teamed up with his former teammates. But this tradition truly started with Lost Galaxies to the 10th Power and continued consistently until Mystic Force. After that, team-ups were sparse and only really saved for anniversaries. Cancelled toys. Like many long-running toy lines, there's bound to be a lot of cancelled products over the course of 30 years. This includes the usual non-essential figurines, some dolls, and even playsets. Sometimes, even what would be considered a tentpole item for the line gets cancelled. The In-Space Spiral Saber was a victim of this. Despite being the Red Ranger's main weapon that season, it didn't see a release in the US due to safety concerns with the tip of the drill. Lord Draken. First appearing in the final page of Mighty Morphin number 4 as the voice of the Black Dragon, then making his first full physical appearance in issue 9, he is a Tommy from an alternate universe who stayed with Rita after the events of Green with Evil and took over the Earth with her. During the Rangers' final stand in the command center, Tommy steals the White Ranger powers, just as they were being given to Jason, and combines it with his own, creating this unique suit that blends both the Green and White Ranger aesthetics. He eventually kills Rita and takes control of the world on his own before attempting to take over the main Boom Comics universe. He's become a very popular character since his debut, later making an appearance in games and lots of merchandise. Crossovers. Despite being incredibly popular in its heyday, Power Rangers almost never really had any crossovers with other franchises. The only real crossover it had in its early years was with the Ninja Turtles from The Next Mutation. Nowadays, crossovers are much more common, especially in the comics. The Rangers have either teamed up or fought against the likes of the Street Fighter cast, Godzilla, and even the Justice League. Renegade Studios is also releasing RPG Sourcebook that crosses over Power Rangers and fellow Hasbro properties G.I. Joe, and the Transformers. Forever Red. Probably the most famous episode of Power Rangers, Forever Red was the 10th anniversary special that aired during Wild Force. The episode saw the return of the previous 9 Red Rangers, teaming up with the then current Red Ranger to fight against the remnants of the Machine Empire from Zeo. Even with its short 22-minute runtime, it still became one of the most beloved episodes of the show. Boom Studios. Boom Studios is the current license holder for the Power Rangers comics and launched their own universe in 2016. Boom has released over 100 issues with other one-shots and specials in between. The comics have introduced new concepts, characters, rangers, and even remixed others to create new stories that the TV series would not be able to deliver otherwise. Hasbro buyout. Since 1993, Bandai of America was the master toy licensee for Power Rangers and had a hand in some of the shows as well, and went strong until their output notably slowed down around late 2017. Later, it was announced on February 15, 2018 that Saban Brands and Bandai of America would end their 25-year-long partnership. And just a day later, it would be announced that Saban would partner with Hasbro for future toys. This came as a shock to many, and some theorize it may have been due to the decline in toy quality from Bandai the last few years of its run. A major factor in Saban choosing Hasbro was the late Brian Golden, who was the CEO at the time and was friends with Haim Saban when he was president of Bandai of America from 1997 to 2000. Later, on May 1st of 2018, Saban outright sold the Power Rangers franchise, along with others, to Hasbro in a massive $522 million deal. Since then, Hasbro has been in charge of the franchise. Lightning Collection. Hasbro's flagship line, the Lightning Collection, encompasses everything from the past 30 years of the Power Rangers, through figures, role-play items, and Megazords. The 6-inch line is the main focus and takes a similar approach to Hasbro's other 6-inch collector lines, such as Marvel Legends, Star Wars The Black Series, and G.I. Joe Classified. There's a common complaint, however, in the quality control of the figures, whether accessories are missing, paint is missing, or they break from switching out heads or hands, or just coming with 2 of the same hand or foot. Shattered Grid. Shattered Grid was the first major event in the Boom Studios comic run, and was made to celebrate the franchise's 25th anniversary. This story also brought Draken to the forefront, as he attempts to take every Ranger's power for himself. The comic sold very well and became a beloved story in a short amount of time, and was later adapted into the story mode for Battle for the Grid in an update. Bulk and Skull. Probably the most famous non-Ranger characters in the series, Farkas Bulkmeyer and Eugene Skulovich, or better known as Bulk and Skull, were a recurring comedic duo throughout Mighty Morphin all the way through In Space. At first they were just bumbling bullies with a memorable theme, but eventually grew to courageous heroes rallying and fighting back against the invasion during Countdown to Destruction. Bulk and Skull would later briefly appear in Lost Galaxy and Forever Red, and wouldn't appear again until Samurai, where Bulk trains Skull's son, Spike, to become a samurai himself. During the finale of Super Samurai, Skull would come to pick up his son and finally reunite with Bulk. They would also make a very brief billboard cameo in Once and Always, where they run a Bulk food company. Pop culture impact, references, and homages. Like I said previously, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was incredibly popular and would go on to air on television for decades after. Many shows and movies would go on to reference it over the years, like Robot Chicken, Spider-Man Far From Home, and my personal favorite, Seinfeld.
Now, from the time that I left the room.
Wait, that's you? I think the M&M should be you.
Even wrestlers for various promotions get in on the love with attire based on different things in Power Rangers. Shout out to that one We Bare Bears episode with JDF as a guest star too. Jason David Frank. The late great Jason David Frank was the face of the franchise since his breakout popularity following the Green with Evil 5-parter as Tommy Oliver. He would go on to be the cast member with the highest number of appearances, with 257 episodes and 3 movies under his belt. He was the type of actor that really loved the fans and was a common sight in the convention circuit. Unfortunately, on November 19th, 2022, Frank committed suicide and was found by his wife in his hotel room. He was mourned by his fellow cast members and fans and will be remembered fondly.
Power Rangers in a lost galaxy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, transform. It's the Felix Megazord, crushing evil out in space. Toys R Us is the way. Power Rangers, Sword Power. your command. Power Rangers in the Lost Galaxy.
Power Rangers Megazord Collection, now at Toys R Us. Each sold separately from Bandai.
For the first time ever, all 10 Red Rangers from all 10 seasons will unite.
Let's do it, guys. Forward for top. One up power. Roll that fist.
To save the world on a new Power Rangers Wild Force. Saturday morning, October 12th at 8:30, 7:30 Central. Then on Sunday, get supercharged with a Best of Power Rangers Red Ranger Marathon. All morning, part of Red Ranger Month on ABC Family.
Layer 2. Natsume. Natsume is a Japanese developer known for developing cult classics on the Super Nintendo such as Wild Guns, The Ninja Warriors, Pocky and Rocky, and Ghost Sweeper Mikami Joreishi wa Nice Body. I really just wanted a reason to bring this series up. Oh, and they also published Harvest Moon all the way from the original Super Nintendo game up until A New Beginning on 3DS. As for what it has to do with Power Rangers, they actually had a pretty big presence for the series in the realm of video games, and they developed the Mighty Morphin and Zeo Super Nintendo games before moving on to the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance for Lightspeed Rescue to SPD. Most games were simple yet fun beat-em-ups, but they always did their best in the soundtrack department for these games. Battleizers. The major power-up that is almost exclusively given to the Red Ranger, the Battleizer armor first appeared in the In Space episode Mission to the Secret City, where a little girl presses the third button on Andros' Battleizer for the first time, and activates the armor. This would start an annual tradition of giving the Red Ranger an American-exclusive power-up that would normally appear towards the latter part of the season, and be used sparingly after its introduction. They would continue to appear up until Operation Overdrive, as the budget for a Battleizer in Jungle Fury went towards the Spirit Rangers instead. Since then, they've returned every now and then, like the Shogun armor in Samurai, or the Fury mode in Beast Morphers. Lightspeed Rescue and Time Force also have mega battles, Battleizer-like armors for some of the other Rangers in those seasons. Production eras. Throughout the franchise's history, there have been 4 major eras in the production of the show that have visually or tonally been noticeably different. The Saban era began with the series and ran until Time Force. The Disney era then begins with Wild Force. Disney would continue to produce the show until RPM, where they were done with the show and didn't want to produce any new episodes, leading to the airing of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2010. Saban would buy back the show and produce Samurai, and try to harken back to Mighty Morphin more, and played it safer than Disney had previously. Finally, in 2018, Hasbro would buy the series and produce Beast Morphers through Cosmic Fury, and is where we currently stand in a more ambitious and unknown territory.
There's a simple explanation for that.
This is a line spoken by Gosei to Jake during the first episode of Super Megaforce titled Super Megaforce. When Jake asked why his Ranger key was green when his previous powers were black, it became something of a meme amongst fans and was used jokingly to wave away any plot holes or inconsistencies throughout the series. And no, we in fact did not get that simple explanation, by the way. Morphin Masters. What began as a very minor background detail to the plot of a week in the Mighty Morphin episode Big Sisters, the Morphin Masters were simply ancient sorcerers that imbued artifacts called the Power Eggs with a universe of power and cast them out to sea for protection. Neither the eggs nor the masters would ever be mentioned after this episode. That was until they were reintroduced in the Boom Studios comics and given a new background and greater significance in the universe, as beings who study the morphing grid since the birth of the universe. Later, in Dino Fury, they were incorporated into the show and given similar roles to their comic counterparts, as they're strongly linked to the morphing grid and are revealed to have created important artifacts in the Power Rangers multiverse that gave some teams their powers, such as the Energems, Dino Gems, and the Ninja Nexus Prism. Similar to Marvel's Watchers, they took an oath to not interfere directly in matters, but the Green Master is revealed to have been involved in the events such as Jason's return in Grid Connection, resurrecting Steel at the end of Beast Morphers, and bringing past Rangers to the fight in Legendary Battle. Who knows what else they've been involved in when it comes to Ranger history. The Morphin Grid. The Morphin Grid is described as a multiversal singularity that grants Rangers their powers throughout the multiverse. It is seen physically every now and then, but is never shown in a consistent form. Sometimes it's shown as a tiny rock that gives a glimpse into the future, to a series of CGI tunnels. Some teams have a natural link to the grid, while others have created their links to it in some way, such as the Overdrive and Grid Battle Force Rangers. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers have always shared a pretty strong connection even in the earliest days of the Power Rangers. Austin St. John, David Yost, and Thuy Trang, in character, hosted the broadcast television premiere of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze on Fox, and would probably cross over for the first time in the in-space episode Shell Shocked, which saw the Turtles and teens team up early in the season, which also mentions that the Ninja Turtles canonically exist within the Power Rangers universe. Years later, Boom Studios and IDW would work together on a Mighty Morphin and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover in 2019, which saw the two teams fight against Rita and Shredder, and even saw the release of figures based on the morphed Turtles and April, morphed Shredder, and Foot Clan Tommy. A sequel was released later in 2022 that saw them fight in Dimension X against Krang, with the Rangers turning into mutants based on their dinosaurs, and the Turtles turning human. Licensed products. Hasbro isn't the only company making official figures for their new franchise. Other companies have had the license to release official figures that Hasbro would not otherwise, such as the 7-inch scale Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Ultimates from Super 7, the 1/6 scale cloth figures from 3-0, Funko Pops, and Mini-Mates from Diamond Select Toys. Main universes. Power Rangers for the most part takes place in a single universe, but there actually is a multiverse involved. While there are other universes, dimensions, and timelines within some of them, the main universes of note are the Prime Universe, which encompasses Mighty Morphin to Jungle Fury, Samurai, Megaforce, Ninja Steel, Beast Morphers, and Dino Fury. RPM is set in its own post-apocalyptic universe, along with Dino Charge taking place in an alternate universe that ends with the dinosaurs living in the modern age. The comics universe also exists, which takes Mighty Morphin and modernizes it, while also adding much more in that wasn't there before. The last two universes of note, however, are the 1995 movie universe, which is aesthetically different from the main show, and is both missing and adding characters that exist in the main continuity, and the 2017 movie universe, which also attempts at modernizing the classic team in its own way. Bans and controversies. During the peak of Mighty Morphin Mania, the show was under scrutiny over its level and depiction of violence, with some studies that say that kids were more likely to play and imitate the show after watching it. This will lead to some countries pulling the show from broadcast for a time after complaints. Funnily enough, the show was banned in New Zealand from Mighty Morphin until Samurai in 2011, even when the show is being filmed there for nearly a decade, since 2002. Malaysia took it one step further when it came to banning the show, and it wasn't even due to its content. The country took issue with the name, thinking that the Morphin part was a little too close to morphine. The show was eventually allowed to air after dropping the Mighty Morphin from the title, and being simply called Power Rangers. Z-Wave. The Z-Wave was the result of Zordon's energy tube being shattered at the end of the in-space finale, Countdown to Destruction. The good energy stored in the tube then reached far out into the galaxy and either destroyed or purified the United Alliance of Evil during their full-scale invasion of various planets. Years later, during Once and Always, it was revealed that the purification process only managed to expel the evil energy that lived on and drifted across the universe and could return at any moment. The term Z-Wave itself was actually a fan term and wasn't canonized until that special. Super Megaforce New Power. The new powers refer to the pre-G-Ranger suits that pop up from Gokaiger footage in Super Megaforce. Gosei refers to them as new powers never before seen on Earth when first used. Not many people like this inclusion due to it being used to save on budget by using more Sentai footage, and also the fact that some teams never got proper morphs in the show. Lightspeed Rescue in particular only got a morph in the extended version of the finale, despite having 2 Rangers returning from that season. The Master Morpher. The Master Morpher is a morpher used by Tommy that debuted in Super Ninja Steel's anniversary episode, Dimensions in Danger. This unique morpher allows Tommy to use any of his previous powers at will and resembles his original power morpher, but changes coins with every morph. It's never given any backstory, though it's presumed that it could have been made sometime before his previous appearance in Legendary Battle, as he's seen to be able to use Saba, his White Ranger sword, earlier in the episode, yet reappears as Mighty Morphin Green, having morphed off-screen. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers at Universal Studios. Like I've already brought up a couple times so far in the Iceberg, Mighty Morphin was hugely popular in its prime. so much so that venues would get packed when they had any sort of public appearance, and most famously so was when they had an appearance at Universal Studios Hollywood. Metal Heroes and Power Rangers. Metal Heroes were a Toei superhero franchise that ran from 1982 to 1999, and while some of them were adapted into shows unconnected to Power Rangers, some characters from Metal Heroes did end up showing up in Power Rangers. Sheriff Skyfire from Ninja Steel is adapted from Jiraiya from Sekai Ninja Sen Jiraiya, and Captain Chaku from Beast Morphers is adapted from Gavan Type G from the Uchu Keiji Gavan movie from 2012. As for why the Sentai episodes featuring these characters were used in Power Rangers in the first place is unknown. It does help flesh out the universe and establish that other heroes outside of the Rangers exist in this universe. Legacy of Power. This clip show was made to commemorate the 500 episode milestone of the Power Rangers and recap the events of the series up to that point. However, due to the episode only being 22 minutes in length, that means that a lot of story had to be condensed for this single episode. This causes some details to be omitted and changes the context for some parts completely. This includes completely omitting the Alien Rangers saga and making it seem like Catherine's arrival and replacing of Kimberly happens right before the destruction of the command center, and not acknowledging the fact that Tanya replaces Aisha during her Zeo quest when other power transfers are mentioned. It serves as an okay if somewhat misleading summary for newcomers, but for someone like me back in 2004 when this aired originally, it did cause me to think for a long time that this was how the show happened and the events unfolded, before earlier episodes were more easily accessible with streaming and proper home media releases. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2010. After RPM, Disney had no interest in continuing the series, and instead opted to go with re-airings of the original series, even with Bandai releasing a new line of toys to go along with it. The catch with this, however, was that the new airing of Mighty Morphin was edited with new flashy visual effects and overlays, somewhat resembling the 60s Batman series. It only aired for 32 episodes, however, about half of the original first season's worth of episodes.
Too much pink energy is dangerous.
This is a quote said by Zordon in Wild West Rangers Part 2 when Kimberly goes to the command center after being transported to 1880. Goldar, the Putties, and the Monster of the Week also end up in the past, and Kim needs the power coins from the past to give to the Rangers' ancestors. Because she already has the pink power coin, that would cause problems if two of the same powers were used at once, thus birthing the quote. Though memed on, the quote is actually important and has implications to the lore which would be relevant later on. During the White Ranger clone arc in Dino Thunder, the clone's powers start to fluctuate and glitch out due to his and the original Ranger taking their energy from the same source. The quote even made its way into Once and Always and establishes that it is now possible for multiple copies of the same powers to exist at once. Santa Claus is real. As with any Christmas special, Santa Claus appears, and he would end up appearing multiple times throughout Power Rangers in fact. Most interestingly is the history of the two actors who played them. Robert Fliss played Santa in I'm Dreaming of a White Ranger during Season 3, but also in Masked Rider in Furbus' First Christmas, and in VR Troopers in Santa's Secret Trooper, which you could take as a hint of all three shows taking place in the same universe if you really wanted to. The other notable actor was John Summer, who actually consistently has played him ever since Dino Charge all the way through Dino Fury. American exclusive Rangers. Even though the show relies on Japanese footage for action scenes, sometimes they like to surprise us, and if the budget allows it, we get brand new Rangers not seen in the Sentai. Ryan, the Titanium Ranger, was the first during Lightspeed Rescue. He didn't get to appear too much or too often since he would have to leave every now and then in order to save money and use more Sentai footage. Then, much later in Jungle Fury, we got the Spirit Rangers, who were the spiritual manifestations of three masters of the Order of the Claw that were initially controlled by Dai Shi and the Phantom Beast, before the Rangers were able to take back control of them and were able to summon them when needed. The budget for what would have been a Battleizer this season was instead used to create the Spirit Rangers. Instead, as writer Jackie Marchand suggested the idea to Bandai, the kids preferred having more Rangers to play with. Toy line exclusives. Power Rangers is of course a toy-centric franchise, and anything you see on the screen will always get a toy. There are also quite a lot of toys that get made but don't appear in the show. This can include Rangers transforming into Zords, monsters that the Rangers never fight on screen, additional Battleizers for other Rangers, and most commonly the motorcycles. A lot of Ranger keys ended up being toy only as they released extra Ranger and allies that didn't appear even during the Legendary Wars such as Ninjor and Phantom Ranger. out of order adaptations. Since Mighty Morphin adapted Zyuranger in 1993, every season after would adapt the Sentai that came after as well. This trend broke, however, when Go Busters was skipped in favor of Kyoryuger when Dino Charge came after Super Mega Force. Tokyuger would then be skipped as well when Dino Charge transitioned into Ninja Steel. In an odd turn of events, after Ninja Steel, Hasbro decided to go back and adapt Go Busters as Beast Morphers. However, we would go back to skipping afterwards when Ryu Soldier was chosen as the next series, skipping Zyuohger, Q-Ranger, and Lupin Ranger vs. Pato Ranger. And lastly, with Cosmic Fury, we're going back and adapting the Megazord fight footage from Q-Ranger, but using original suits with the Ryu Soldier helmets. Black and gold repaints. Beginning with Bandai, it's almost become tradition to release a black and gold repaint of the original Megazord when a new version of it is released. This would even extend later on to Dragonzord and Titanus. Super 7 and Funko even released repaints homaging the originals. The only other Megazords to get a mass-release black and gold variant like this were Astro Megazord, which was released as Astro Galactic Megazord during the Lost Galaxy toy line, and the black and gold Dino Charge Megazord, which was split up between a single release of the T-Rex and the arms sold with a different T-Rex repaint called the limited edition Dino Charge Megazord. Dairanger suits pre-Super Mega Force. While the Kiba Ranger suit was adapted into the White Mighty Morphin Ranger, there were ideas to use the main team suits at some point before they would be introduced as Squadron mode in Super Mega Force. Rumors persisted that they were meant to appear in Lost Galaxy as Ancient Rangers, but was debunked by writer and producer Jackie Marchand when she said,
"We were kind of rolling on our own story in Lost Galaxy. There was so much going on in that season that we couldn't shoehorn in."
She even went on to say that they would always try to find ways to fit it in somewhere since they had so much footage they purchased. But by the time Time Force rolled around, the footage was too old and would be noticeably clashing with the show at that point. The suits would eventually show up as the Squadron Mode Rangers in Super Mega Force, and their history would be greatly expanded upon in the Boom Studios comics later on. The many cancellations of Power Rangers. Power Rangers had a good nearly 30-year-long streak of airing new episodes on television, but there were actually plenty of times where the show was going to go off the air. The first time was not so much a cancellation, but a planned ending with the Doomsday two-parter in Season 1 of Mighty Morphin. This would have been the end since there was no more Zyuranger footage to use, but the unprecedented success of the show made Saban Entertainment commission Toei to shoot new footage and extend the season by 20 episodes. That success only lasted so long, as ratings slowly declined and In Space was written as the finale to the series. While not every plot thread was wrapped up, by the end all the evil was destroyed or purified in the world and the show could have ended just fine there. But In Space proved to be so popular, the show was renewed with Lost Galaxy and continued on until Wild Force. By that time, Disney had acquired the series through its purchase of the Fox family worldwide, and was content with just airing reruns and stopped producing episodes in the US. When filming in New Zealand was seen as a viable and inexpensive option, Ninja Storm was produced. All was well and good until Jungle Fury, as Disney had slowly but surely lost even more interest in the series, especially after their impending $4 billion acquisition of Marvel in 2009. RPM was only made due to contractual obligations to Bandai of Europe with Jetix. After fulfilling that, Disney aired the re-edited Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 2010 until Saban Brands would buy back the series later that year, and since then the show has been in consistent production, but not much is known about the series post Cosmic Fury. Kelson Henderson. Kelson Henderson is a New Zealand-based actor who has consistently appeared in some capacity in every season since Dino Thunder. He's played main characters such as Mechanic and Cruz, and Monster of the Week characters like Satbot and Psychotic. Henderson is most beloved, however, for his role as the bumbling SPD Academy dropout, Boom, and his memorable dream sequence where he imagined himself as the Orange Ranger. He even got to appear as an unlockable secret character in the DS version of Super Legends.
He is from another time and dimension. He is a cop unlike any other. He is the Blue Centurion. He has a synergizer. It's a recorder. Pretty neat, huh? It's also a laser blaster and a sword. He has great toys, but he doesn't toy around with evil. He is a cop unlike any other. Donuts. Well, pretty much. Shift into Turbo with Blue Centurion toys.
Bandai. Action. Satisfaction.
The day after Thanksgiving.
Forget the turkey and turn on the turtles.
Awesome!
They're coming at you with a bodacious,
Surf's up, dude!
action-packed adventure for the whole family.
Whoa!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, hosted by the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This Friday at 8, 7 Central on Fox.
Well, those were the first 2 layers of the iceberg. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I did making it. I want to take the time to thank the following people for helping make this video possible. Zach XIX, who designed the thumbnails for the series. He does commissions, so hit him up on Twitter. Fellow YouTuber Sakura Stardust for lending her voice to this video and the rest of the iceberg. I didn't think I'd actually get her, let alone anyone to voice small segments considering I'm just starting out. Zeo Ranger UK for helping suggest some early layer topics, because I was so into researching the lower level stuff, I kinda neglected the easier, higher level stuff. Consumer Time Capsule on Twitter and Instagram for allowing me to use their photos for the unproduced McDonald's promotions. The pages are actually really interesting and I recommend checking them out if you're into retro fast food marketing. John Green and his website greenranger.com, which was an invaluable resource throughout the entire iceberg. And last, but definitely not least, Chunky Monkey from the Power Rangers Discord server for helping me find some footage that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to come across on my own. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll stick around for the rest of the iceberg.